and would ask that you would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sandy, could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Shippers.
Here.
Ellenboss.
Here.
Ingalls.
Here.
King.
Here.
Mayor Folkens.
Here. And at this time, if someone would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda with the amendment.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the agenda as amended to add the display of a banner for National Library Week under communication.
Support. Okay. Robert will second it.
Councilmember Ellenboss.
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Folkens.
Yes, motion carries. This time we'll open the floor for our first public comment. We do ask if you come forward, if you would please state your name and then write your name and address for the clerk, it would be greatly appreciated. And if you could limit your time to 3 minutes or less.
Terrell Bodery. Last time I was here, I spoke on Ashlyn Lisby and how she was killed by Jonathan Henderson of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department in an effort to get you guys to remove thin blue line flags from city property. The one that was in here has been moved across the street. Today I'd just like to read from an article from the Pew Research Center. This one's from 2017. First paragraph goes, only about half of the violent crimes and a third of the property crimes that occur in the United States each year are reported to police. And most of the crimes that are reported don't result in the arrest, charging, and prosecution of a suspect, according to government statistics. Third paragraph. Even when violent and property crimes are reported to police, they're often not solved, at least based on a measure known as the clearance rate. That's the share of cases each year that are closed or cleared through the arrest, charging, and referral of a suspect for prosecution. In 2015, 46% of violent crimes and 19% of the property crimes reported to police in the U.S. were cleared. So we've got a quarter of violent crimes and about 6 to 10% of property crimes actually being solved. In, I would guess, a follow-up article from 2020 using 2019 statistics. In its annual survey, BJS asks crime victims whether they reported their crime to police or not. In 2019, only 40.9% of violent crimes and 32.5% of household property crimes were reported to authorities. BJS notes that there are a variety of reasons why crime might not be reported, including fear or reprisal, or getting the offender in trouble, a feeling that police would not or could not do anything to help, or a belief that the crime is a personal issue or too trivial to report. In 2019, police nationwide cleared 45.5% of violent crimes that were reported to them and 17.2% of property crimes that came to their attention. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Paul Griffith, and I am the Vice Chair of the Northern Chapter of the Friends of the White Pine, which is a public 501c3 organization that has been around since 1997 to hopefully realize the 92 miles of the White Pine Trail would ultimately get paved. On October 18, 2021, you as City Commission approved a resolution supporting the paving of the rest of the White Pine Trail. You were one of 26. We had 26 organizations all the way down to Cedar Springs, which is 75 miles from here. Cities, counties, townships, chambers, Rotary clubs, CVBs, all supporting the paving, the rest of the paving of that trail. We could have got more, but we thought 26 probably made a statement. That was sent to several of our state senators and representatives that represent the trail, the entire length, and also to several key legislators, in other words, Chair of the Finance Committee of the House and the Senate, etc. 2 weeks ago, I want you to know there were some results from that. You may know that the House and the Senate approved a huge supplemental bill to the tune of $4.8 billion, mostly of which were federal ARPA and infrastructure dollars. But in there was $250 million for state parks and trails, as the governor had recommended, and also the Senate. And obviously the House concurred with that. And while we can't say and have an absolute guarantee of 100%, and the reason for that is that bill did not list the individual parks and trails by name or by dollar amount, but most of us and many of us feel extremely confident, and we have talked to DNR folks. We know the White Pine Trail was on that list. It was high on the list. We feel very confident that either probably in 2023 or 2024, the rest of that trail will get paved, which is huge. In fact, this year, 7 miles will get paved. So if you know where Sand Lake is at the Kent-Montcalm County line, mile 21. It will get paved up to Howard City, mile 28. So we'll have 3/4 of the trail paved, and we'll be down to 22 miles. I spend several hours almost every week, as a volunteer, by the way. I do not collect a dime, but I thoroughly enjoy what I do now that I'm retired, working on the White Pine Trail projects and other connecting trails to the White Pine up and down, not just up north here, but the entire trail. And I think I can tell you in very, very strong confidence that in the next 3 to 5 years, you will see more action, activity, paving, repair, amenities. Just last week, the Cedar Springs submitted a trust fund grant for amenities in Cedar Springs. That in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll see more activity than we did in the last 15, okay, or more. Which is great.
I need to interrupt. You're at 3.5 minutes, but I would welcome you back at the second public comment if you have more to share with us.
Okay, thank you.
So much.
Jason Towers. And I worked on approaching other businesses in South End, predominantly restaurants and stuff, seeing what their feedback was on wanting snowmobile trails to get into town, and had a lot of good responses of people who were for it, and did that with residents as well, and submitted those to you guys. I think you've got them, and just asking that you'll weigh that, put some weight into thinking about getting that done. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no one else, we'll close public comment and we'll move to the approval of the consent agenda. This evening we do have the minutes from the work session that was held on March 21st, along with the minutes from the regular meeting that was held on March 21st.
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Councilmember Ingalls?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Ellenboss?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes, motion carries. All right, this evening we do have 2 public hearings, so I'll go ahead and turn it to you, Marcus, please.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. The first public hearing this evening is to consider the adoption of an ordinance that would authorize the sale of real property, a portion of 514 Wright Street. This is something that has been before the City Council going perhaps as far back as 2017, being a key point in time when a significant source of funding was made available through the state of Michigan. And this is regarding the property formerly known or more commonly known as the Mitchell-Bentley property. This is now where the Consumers Energy Solar Community Garden site is located. And as members of City Council and the public know from prior presentations, there are several acres of available land still yet and ripe for redevelopment purposes on that site. All of which would not be possible for not having an incredible partnership and collaboration with the Cadillac Industrial Fund. And just to mention a few major milestones that are in place for this particular project and site. If not for the networking and connections that the Industrial Fund had with the state of Michigan in helping to get a MDEQ lien released, we wouldn't be sitting here this evening, with the Consumers Project on that site and the available acreage ready for redevelopment. Additionally, members of the fund worked with members of staff in helping to facilitate getting our ducks in a row to make us eligible for receiving quite a hefty grant through a brownfield program. Also, the Industrial Fund pledged not just their networking assistance, but actual dollars to help make a match possible through the receipt of over $700,000 of outside funding for the project, plus an additional $250,000 that they were able to help us access through Eagle. As time went on, DEQ went through a name change and then became Eagle. And ultimately, it was through the cooperation and collaboration with the fund that we were able to solicit and get Consumers Energy to become a partner. And so truly, as we think about it, a public-private partnership in all ways, shapes, and forms. And so as a part of all of that, the City of Cadillac and the Industrial Fund entered into an agreement stipulating that the fund at a point in time, basically at their choosing, would be able to acquire the property basically for $1. There would be a 90-10 split of proceeds, the city receiving a 10% split or proceeds of any sale of those available acreage, with the fund then receiving 90% that will help continue to keep them in business. Additionally, the agreement was recorded to that property, on the deed of the property. We're at a point in time now where, there have been a couple of interested parties that have come across to the city and to the fund. And in order to have basically all of our ducks lined up, it's important that by ordinance, which is required by our charter, not just the agreement or the resolution of support, but by ordinance, we position the property to where it can be sold to the fund at the request pursuant to the agreement that's already on the books. Without me jibber-jabbering any longer, it'd be important for me to recognize some distinguished guests that we have here today. I believe one or more may want to come up and provide a couple of words of support. We do have fund members present this evening. Dean DeKreiger, Lee Richards, Craig Hewitt, William Repka, Robert Garner. Our chamber president, Caitlin Berard, is also here. Like me, she serves in an advisory capacity to the fund. And if anyone wanted to make any remarks, this would be the time to bring you up. So, Craig?
Good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm Craig Hewitt, and I've been a lifelong resident of the Cadillac area. I'm also one of the volunteer members of the Cadillac Industrial Fund. I've been involved as a volunteer for the last 6 years. The Industrial Fund has supported the city of Cadillac for over 60 years. They were founded in 1952, and the mission is to promote industrial business within Cadillac and create and sustain jobs and tax base. The Industrial Fund is comprised of local business volunteers. The members contribute extensively their time, their experiences, their resources, and their networking to achieve this mission. This is just one example of the many missions that the Industrial Fund has achieved since 1952. The Industrial Fund has worked very hard behind the scenes for the last 5 years to clean up, develop the former burned-down Mitchell-Bentley site. We're very proud of the collaboration with the City of Cadillac and Consumers Energy through their Solar Garden commitment and with the Industrial Fund. We look forward to the final phases of this. And then we talked about the proceeds on the 90-10 split. We will use those proceeds to develop and to clean up other sites around the Cadillac area. But we feel this is a huge milestone, and all of us standing here are very proud of the efforts that we all volunteered to accomplish this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can just take just a minute. My mother lives on Aldrich Street, and that site, or the house she lives in, which my wife and I own, her mother's 90 years old, and during World War II, she watched the boats that were used in the landings in the landings that took back Europe and took a number of islands in the South Pacific. She watched those come out of that Chris-Craft factory, which the Chris-Craft factory later became Mitchell-Bentley. It was subsequently a number of factories. World War II, she watched them come out one after the other. And for her to see that site then burn up and turn into the hellhole that it really was, and for the City of Cadillac to get together with the Industrial Fund and with consumers and with so many of the state agencies and turn it into a solar garden. So now when she looks out her back window to see that site looking so much nicer because everybody could get together, agree, and put together a plan to make that look nice has been a real godsend in her lifetime. At 90 years old, she's happy to look out that window again. Thank you.
Can you please share your name with everyone?
Pardon?
Can you please share your name with everyone?
Oh, I'm Bob Garner. I've lived here in the Cadillac area for the last 23 years, but I've been a city resident for the last 9 years, and proud to live in the city. And it's just a great place to live. It was always my dream to, as a young man, to move to the city of Cadillac at some point in time and live here, and it's been a dream come true, and I'm very, very happy with it. So, yeah, I just appreciate the good work you do. Cadillac has changed. It's not the Cadillac I used to come visit, and in some ways, you kind of wish it was always remained the same, but it's better. And what you've been able to do in the last 10, 12 years here has just been remarkable. Really glad to be here. Thank you.
I like those stories.
I do too.
Those are great. Okay, at this time, we will open the floor of the public hearing for any public comments that anyone would like to make in regards to this public hearing. Okay, seeing no one, we'll close public comment and move to discussion of the council or entertaining a motion.
Well,
No.
I go ahead.
Excuse me.
It's your neighborhood. Go ahead.
Let me remind everyone, if I am correct, Marcus, this is where we're going to put the marijuana grow facility?
No, it's possible that use could go there, but it's certainly not definitive. So it could be any industrial
That's kind of
use.
an answer.
Well, it could be any industrial use, and there is
But
no
on the table, we've already discussed that there's the possibility, strong possibility of the marijuana grow facility being there.
but there's nothing definitive.
Okay,
So
okay,
if there was, I would tell you.
okay.
STI?
You-
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to say that watching the cooperation to reclaim this property, this clearly historic property, and to bring it to a place where it is not only, where it's going to be useful again. And this is a really good thing. Does anybody else have anything to say, or can I make the motion? I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt ordinance to authorize sale of real property, portion of 514 Wright Street.
Support.
Councilmember King,
Yes.
Shippers,
Yes.
Ellenboss,
No,
Ingalls,
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries. I just want to say thank you for what you shared this evening. This is my 9th year on the council, and I have to say that the Mitchell property was one of the greatest accomplishments that we've done in the last 8 years that I've been on the council. And we're proud to do it with a group of people from the industrial group. So thank you. Okay?
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. The next public hearing this evening is to consider the adoption of an ordinance amending the city's zoning map. As presented to everyone at your last meeting, there is a small portion of the property located where Don's Auto Clinic is that's currently zoned residential mobile home. And the rezoning request, as recommended by the city's planning commission, is to rezone it to our B3 or general business district classification. John Wallace, our development director, I think is here in case there's any questions that members of council may have before we get into the public hearing. Otherwise, it's back to you, Mayor.
There's probably any questions? No.
Okay.
I don't think we have any questions for you, John.
That makes it an easy night.
You did such a good job explaining it
Yes.
the last time.
Yes.
All right.
All right, thank you.
you.
So we'll go ahead and open the floor for public comment as it relates to this public hearing. Seeing no one, we'll close public comment and move to the council to entertain a motion or for discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt ordinance amending the city zoning map as presented.
I'll second it.
Discussed.
Councilmember Shippers,
Yes.
Ellenboss,
Yes,
Ingalls,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries. All right, then Sandy, the next one's up to you. Communications for this evening.
Yes, it's being recommended to approve the display of a banner from April 5th through the 11th, 2022 for National Library Week.
It is National Library Week. I'll make a motion to approve the display of a banner from April 5th through 11th, 2022 for National Library Week.
Support.
Councilmember Ellenboss,
yes,
Ingalls,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Shippers,
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries. Excuse me, motion carries. Marcus, City Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. This next item is a recommendation regarding the Trailhead at Cadillac Commons project or construction thereof. The council communication and the public packets and your packets, which are one and the same, in the beginning does a quick background as to where we were and where we are. Talks about how the project started off in 2018, basically after we had received funding through the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund to help us create the trail extension as well as the trailhead. We bid the project out. City Council discussed the results of that bidding and requested staff rebid it and created some additional framework for staff to use when rebidding the project. And so we did receive a handful of bids back. The chart in your communication identifies the results of that bid. It also identifies alternate 1, alternate 2, and alternate 3. And then the communication goes so forward as to make a recommendation. I'm going to read the recommendation now and then ask our city engineer, Connie Hauk, with Prana Newhoff, to run through a brief PowerPoint that we have that I think does a pretty decent job in illustrating the bid results that we got back and what the recommendation is. But as you'll see, skipping to the third page of the council communication document under recommended action, we are recommending this evening that construction for the White Pine Trail Extension and Trailhead Construction Project go to CJ's Excavating. We're looking at including a 15% contingency, which would bring the project to $478,684.27. One of the things that you'll hear about as a part of the slide overview is the picnic shelter. So the picnic shelter is an amenity piece at the trailhead that is not covered at all by any of the grant funding. And working with our connections with the State of Michigan Economic Development Corporation and in looking at outside funding initiatives that have been recently released, we're going to essentially recommend pulling that component of the project out from this initiative to try to essentially partner it with a couple of other placemaking type initiatives that we have sort of on the back burner because of the need to find outside funding to make them work. If we get one of those grants, which is like a 90-10 grant, fantastic. If we don't, then we would likely come back to City Council to ask for authority to move it forward using another source of funds. And you'll see as we get through the PowerPoint how that recommendation is structured. It's not sort of a take it or leave it. You have options. And so with that, I'm going to ask Connie to run through the slides, if you could. Thank you. And as she's getting it ready, we did receive some questions. Those questions that came in, we used to create an FAQ document that we then posted online on Facebook and whatnot to try to keep everybody up to speed as best as possible. All right. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Council. Thank you. So as Marcus said, we did go back to bid on this with all the recommendations that everybody had and prices that you wanted to see from the contractor to price out. So this is a plan sheet of what the contractor bid on, and it shows the amenities of the park. This one is in color view, kind of pops out a little bit more what the green space is. The magenta color is the parking spaces, but it also shows the drinking fountain and the signboards that are out there to direct people. We are one of the two ends of the White Pine Trail, so pretty cool to have this here in our town. And we want to make that special with some signs. So we've been working with the Visitors Bureau on what those signs will be. And with that, of course, safety is a number one concern. So getting people out of the trailhead parking lot onto the trail system and the visibility crossing and signing and just vision of traffic coming through there. So we have some high visibility pavement markings, drinking fountain, bike repair station, and then the clock tower. The clock tower is actually going to be an awesome piece that's everybody's going to ride underneath that when they come in and out of the trailhead. And the clocks are going to be shown so that you can see it on Lake Street, you can see it from the parking lot, and you can see it coming from the library. So it's going to be a really neat structure on top of the pillars there. All right. So, and there is a rendering. It's in SketchUp, so it doesn't show the clocks on there, but they are. And there will also be a little sign on there similar that will match to the City Park arch and the arch on top of the market. So That will be kind of the showpiece. So, the bike lanes will run down the shoulders of Lake Street. We have proposed to add a little bit of the green pavement marking, which has become a national symbol for bike lanes. They are spots of green. It's not like the whole shoulder is green. It creates a bike box so that bicyclists know where to travel, and it also gives visibility for drivers so that they know that there's bicyclists in the area, and for the crossing at South Street. So this is the crossing at Lake Street, and that will have the green pavement marking also to get them over to the trail on the other side. And so we did 3 alternates with this bid, if you remember. The first one was in the bid, we actually have it so just part of the parking lot is reconstructed, and the other part is mill and overlaid. As alternate 1, we just put it out there to say what would it be to reconstruct the whole parking lot. So that's what alternate 1 was. So I don't have a picture of that. Alternate 2 was to do a secondary crossing down by Cottage Street over to the trail, and that would require some tree clearing and additional pavement marking, signing, with a contractor bid on that as well. And then alternate 3 was adding the picnic shelter, which Marcus has mentioned, the CDBG grant that just came out for placemaking initiative. That is very eligible in that grant. So we are preparing a grant application for that to include it with other things that go all the way from the Lake Street parking lot all the way down to the high school, several locations along the walkway. This is the bid tabulation summary. We had 5 bids come in. And so as you can see, each contractor gave the base bid, plus they gave bids for each of the alternatives. We reviewed all of the bids, and the low bidder is CJ's Excavating, and that is the prices for each of the alternates that they gave. And then this is a table that shows the Trailhead Funding. Many generous community donations. Many of them are already committed. Some have already been received. And that shows the cost, and I know that was in your packet for you guys to review the cost of that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I had asked for a abbreviated slideshow, so which is perfect, and so I appreciate it. Kind of don't go too far.
Okay.
But so the recommendation, for this evening would be to essentially accept the recommendation of utilizing CJ as the lowest responsible bidder for the project. We are comfortable in not doing the full reconstruction of the parking lot as we were talking about it in the past. It is a parking lot. There isn't going to be traffic on it. So the sort of the beating up of the road surface isn't going to be nearly as intense as what it would be if it was a standard road. That's one way of shaving some of the costs of the project. We do have, as a part of your meeting later this evening, a budget amendment that identifies all of the funding sources that would need to get allocated to pay for the project, but we don't get there unless we can get through this part. So if there's any questions of me or our engineer or finance director or community development director, obviously we're here to try to help address any questions you may have.
I have a question about the bike lane. Mm-hmm. It's across the street on the lakeside.
It's on both shoulders.
That's my question.
Yes.
Are the bikes
Yeah,
running
sorry.
both ways on one side of the street?
No, they go with traffic.
Thank you. Okay.
Yep, sorry, I should have been
Thank
more
you. Yeah,
clear.
because I can only see it on one side. So
Yeah.
okay.
That's why you have to wear helmets.
Still, you have to go with
Nice.
traffic.
I was a little nervous there.
Right, no.
Yeah. So what is the timing of the grant for the picnic shelter? I know you said you're.
So it just got released. It is due later, I believe, this month. And it is really, I think, anyone's guess as to when they're going to make announcements. But realistically, that would be a next year type project, because my presumption is that the announcement of winners will happen at some point this summer. which might make it tough to plan for and yet still do before we lose the weather to do construction. And I'm just being conservative as I say that, but we just don't know.
My question, Connie, is, and I think everyone's done a great job on this, especially for what the cost was before and coming back now. If we go ahead and approve the trailhead right now without the picnic shelter option, does that give us the opportunity as a community, if we're looking for placeholder projects from the trailhead all the way down to the high school? Because we already have really good picnic areas by the fountain. We have picnic areas over by the band shell. Do we need to have a $63,000 approval for something that's duplicative right at the trailhead at this time?
Yeah, and I think the difference would be this would be a covered, it would be a shelter, inclement weather if people are waiting to go out on the trail or, coming back for a picnic, whereas the other picnic areas don't have covers. So it'd be different. I know people enjoy the one down at Kenwood Park, and we just don't have a lot of that amenity in town. So that was the idea behind having another picnic shelter. And I think people would also use it if they were over listening to music, and it's just an extra little something downtown.
And this would be an additional structure to the clock tower structure.
Yeah.
Does that visually impair some of the enjoyment of the lake or the view of the lake from whether you're from after 26 or the state building there? I'm just worried about that being too cluttered.
Yeah, and they are open they're open. It is just a roof with the pillars on the end and stuff. So there are little sight lines that are blocked, but generally if you're on second story of the the Eagle building, you'd be able to see, and you'd still be able to see around. There's such an open area there that's clear that you would still have a lot of view of the lake. But that's a really good question.
Nothing?
I just, in terms of having a picnic shelter, I think it serves multiple purposes, not just inclement weather, but coming off the trail to get in the shade, and just a place to, even on nice days, the shelters are nice. And as you say, the only shelter we have is in Kenwood Park.
If I just want to make sure council was clear with where I was going with the shelter.
Right.
Yeah.
We're looking at trying to fund it through a different source, if we can partner it with some other placemaking initiatives to make a different project with it, and would come back if of course that didn't work out.
Right.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, and I think that the picnic shelter would be a wonderful addition to the trailhead, both for a gathering place as groups are getting ready to go out, and then, as you say, when they're coming off the trail. I think it would be nice. And I think that was one of the questions in the FAQ about whether it would block the view for the two buildings. And you said it wouldn't.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Does anybody remember the meeting we had at the market?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we sent Connie away to come back with something less expensive.
She did.
Well, it was $360,000 for everything last time, and we were looking at maybe $130,000. We had three options at that time, so now we're looking at $500,000 almost. And I'm a cyclist. Believe me, if I had my way, we'd cover everything up down there. But taxpayers' money, $500,000 for a, sorry, don't take offense, a glorified parking lot.
It's not taxpayers' money. It's being funded by all of these sources in the community as well.
Right, but $478,000 came from the community? No, stop it. That's all I got to say. It's just,
Look at the subtotal of the funds
it's a waste of money.
that were committed and received, Brian.
Yes, it's a waste of money.
All right.
I'll give it a shot. I'll make a motion to approve option 1 to award the bid to CJ's Excavating. I believe in the amount is $416,247.19.
Thank you.
May I, quick clarification, the contingency?
I would not add the option 3 to it.
No.
Oh.
No.
The 15%.
There's a
Oh, I'm
project
sorry.
contingency. I apologize.
We're gonna
Yeah,
have to-
nope, it's all right, you're
It's right at the bottom of
you're
the
right
statement.
there. It's right here.
Oh, okay, there we go. And to approve that a 15% contingency can be added to the contract for inflationary adjustments and field level quality changes for a total contract award, and I'm saying of $416,247.19.
Right. Yep. So that does bring it to the 478. 'Cause if you flip the page, that's the picnic shelter.
No, I'm not
No, I
not
know.
adding
I'm
them.
with you.
Okay.
Yep. Just the one motion.
So that was a motion to approve option 1 with the base bid only plus the contingency.
Yes.
Correct.
Support.
Can I
Yes,
just
so-
make one comment that the total is then 416 plus 15%, which is the 479.
Oh, okay, all right.
416 is the bid plus the 15%.
That's
That does not include the
I like the way I
structure.
said it better.
I like 416 better than 479, but we're going to shoot for 416.
I understand what, yes.
Then, yeah,
Yes, that
the
is
remainder is just a contingency. Thank you.
We just wanted to be clear.
Okay.
Councilmember Ingalls,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Ellenboss,
No.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. I do appreciate all of
Is
your
there supposed to be another motion?
That's only up to council if you wish to do.
No, nobody wants to make that motion at this time.
Does it?
I would. I'll make a motion to approve alternate 3, the addition of the picnic shelter as described. This portion of the project will be dependent on the identification of other funding sources, including the application for additional grant funding.
Support.
Councilmember King,
No.
Shippers.
Yes.
Ellenboss,
No.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Now I'll say thank you.
You bet.
Okay. And thank you, and just for clarification, that approval of the second motion doesn't add any
Right.
additional
It's only
funding
contingent
into
on
it. Indeed.
whether or not we get funding
Right.
for it.
And,
Oh.
and that alternate 3 is not in the budget proposal that we're going to deal with later.
I don't-
as well.
I
No.
don't believe so. Yeah,
Correct.
That is correct. It is not in.
So it
the-
is not.
It is not in the budget amendment. Okay, thank you, members of City Council. The next item is a request to schedule a public hearing for April 18th, 2022, to consider the approval of your fiscal year 2023 through 2028 capital improvement program.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to schedule a public hearing for April 18th, 2022, to consider approval of the fiscal year 2023 through 2028 capital improvement program.
Support.
Councilmember Shippers,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
Ellenboss,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries.
And similarly, the next request is to schedule the public hearing again for April 18th for our fiscal year 2023 annual operating budget.
I'll
We're
go
again,
ahead.
6 o'clock, sorry.
That's right. I'll go ahead and make the motion to schedule a public hearing for April 18th, 2022, to discuss the 2022-2023 annual operating budget.
I'll
Support.
second it.
Councilmember Ellenboss,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. The next item is a recommendation regarding the purchase of ferric chloride. Ferric chloride is used by our Utilities Department for the treatment of phosphorus in the waste stream. The recommendation this evening, after bids were received, is to work with Webb Chemical Service Corporation with their price of .374 per dry pound. Funds are available in the nutrient removal Division of the Water and Sewer Fund.
I'll make a motion to award the contract for purchasing ferric chloride for the period of May 1st, 2022 through April 30th, 2024 to Webb Chemical Service Corporation at a price of .374 per dry pound.
I'll
Cents.
second it.
Councilmember Ingalls?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Ellenboss?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. This next item is a request from our Public Safety Director for out-of-state travel. This is for him to attend the International Association of Chiefs of Police Conference and Exposition that is going to be taking place this fall in Texas. The city's travel policy requires city manager approval as well as ratification by the City Council. And the recommendation this evening would be to approve the travel request as presented in your packet.
Where is he traveling to?
Dallas.
Okay, very good.
I'll make a motion to approve, to approve the out-of-state travel request for the Director of Public Safety as presented.
I'll second it.
I think it's important that, that our folks keep abreast of important new information. Ongoing education is so important, especially in public safety, so that's why.
Councilmember King?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Ellenboss?
Yes.
Ingalls?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes, motion carries.
Okay. So moving right along, Mayor, members of the City Council, we're at point in our point in our agenda where it's the adoption of ordinances and resolutions. This first item is with respect to the 101 Harris redevelopment project. The request is to set a public hearing for April 18th in regard to a pending brownfield plan. We will have our consultant, Mac McClellan with Outlaw Malby here at your next meeting. Very similar to what we did with the Speeds project. He came and gave City Council and the public an overview at that hearing of the actual brownfield plan itself, as well as the Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act exemption that was being requested as well, which you'll see is going to be coming up here in a moment as well to set that hearing. But it is very exciting for the city of Cadillac to be here this evening introducing this item. As your council communication references, Val Vista RV Park LLC does own the property, which is the former Northwoods Hotel. There are representatives here, Josh Trust and Pete Ludvigkinson, if I'm saying it right, or did I add an extra syllable? It's close. Okay, all right. I apologize, Pete. But they are here representing ownership of the property. This is going to be another multiple $million project that should we be able to assist in getting this off the ground, and the partnership with the private developers in the state of Michigan will be a wonderful new amenity and asset to our downtown Cadillac. It's another mixed-use project where we'll be seeing a mix of commercial and residential spaces. And I would say stay tuned to the public hearing, assuming that it's set for April 18th. You guys good to go? I think it's back to council.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt the resolution regarding brownfield plan for the 101 Harris redevelopment and set public hearing for April 18th, 2022.
Support.
Councilmember Shippers?
Yes.
Ellenboss?
Yes.
Ingalls?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. The next two items are with regard to the Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act. You first need to create or establish the district, and then you need to consider the application for an eligible property within the district. Very similar to what we did with the Speeds property. We created a district for that site and then entertained the application. Again, I'm back to council requesting the setting of that hearing for April 18th to create the district.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to adopt the resolution regarding obsolete property rehabilitation district establishment for the 101 Harris redevelopment and set public hearing for April 18th, 2022.
Support.
Councilmember Ellenboss?
Yes.
Ingalls?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes, motion carries.
And to tie this all up, this next one is to set the public hearing to consider the application from the developer for an OPRA, or an Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act application exemption.
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution regarding Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act application for the 101 Harris redevelopment and set the public hearing for April 18th, 2022.
I'll second.
Councilmember Ingalls?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
Shippers?
Yes.
Ellenboss?
Yes.
Mayor Folkins?
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. The final item under the City Manager's report this evening is a request for Council to adopt a resolution that amends your General Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2022. As our Finance Director is getting ready to walk you through it, this will take into consideration a variety of revenues and expenses that were unplanned and keeps us all in line. So, Owen, if you're ready.
Okay, thank you. I'll
Okay.
try to move quickly through this, but if there's
Thank
any
you.
questions, feel free to stop me. So wanted to recognize the fact that we do have some extra revenue coming in, and as a matter of fact, any of the expenditures that we're asking to amend to increase will be more than covered by the revenue that we are adding to the budget tonight. So those revenue sources include the current property tax, projected final roll, which was higher than originally and conservatively budgeted for by $65,000. Same thing on the constitutional revenue sharing. We were a little apprehensive yet last year in the midst of what we were in, and so that's coming in about $110,000 higher. Noteworthy tonight is the first revenue sharing payment related to marijuana licenses. So this year that was $56,000 per license. We have 2 licenses, so that's $112,000. Additional revenue from the local community stabilization authority. That would be payment number 2 related to the personal property tax reimbursement. And so we've received several $100,000 extra over the last several years related to that. And so we're adding $160,000 to the budget, which again, I think even that number is conservative. Federal grants, this is where we're budgeting the first use of a portion of the ARPA funds to cover the additional payroll payments that we made this year that were considered by council. Solid waste collection, just a little bit extra revenue that will be offset by an increase in the contractual removal later on in the amendment, and then some additional contributions, and those are related to the private contributions that were raised for the leadership project at the Shade Locomotive. So there's going to be an addition to the expense for that coming up, but needed to recognize the revenue for that. So the payroll that is covered by the $80,000 grant, that covers the additions to the city manager, financial services, and the city manager, that's not just him, that's for his department, so there's several employees in that department. Financial services, clerk, treasurer, and the first 2 of the city hall, as you're following along in your packet. The capital outlay in the city hall, that was originally, we were going to use reserves for that, but again, extra revenue for the year will cover this expense of $140,000 to fix the roof. Again, we've been experiencing some leaks. It's been about 30 years since we've done that roof, so this will cover that project. The capital outlay is the next item in the police department. This is just a timing issue. These funds were appropriated last year for 2 patrol cars, but neither one of those arrived in time to before the end of last fiscal year, so we just simply need to transfer that appropriation into the current year because those have been received and paid for at this point. In the Public Works Department, part of it is the payroll issue, as spoken of before. Other parts of it are, this is where the DPW labor is classified. Sometimes they spend more time on specific tasks than we anticipated at the beginning of the year. So we're appropriating more funds into these particular activities. That will be offset by a reduction in some other areas where they'll come in under budget. But that would be in a separate fund, so we need to appropriate those personnel and equipment rental costs into the general fund. And then the removal contract, that's the offset that we talked about in the actual contract for Republic Services on the trash. Moving to page 3, Parks and Recreation, the payroll and the DPW classification is the exact same as in the Public Works classification just talked about. Planning and zoning is payroll. Community promotions, the special projects, that's the Shea Locomotive project, fully funded by the leadership class this year, and a great project, I might add. The last part of the general fund is the a transfer out for the Trailhead project. So I'll go into more detail on that. So if you have questions on that, basically that's half of the remaining costs. And we have to talk about this one in just a second, so I'll go into more detail on that. But we're proposing to pull $110,000 from the general fund, again, fully covered by additional revenues coming in for this year. And then at the bottom of page 3, there's a summary of the general fund where you can see with the additions to revenue and the addition to expenditures we're anticipating that will be in the black for the general fund for the year. Page 4, the water and sewer fund. Again, as we've tracked water and sewer sales for the year, those revenues are going to come in slightly higher than originally anticipated. And those revenues, again, will cover the costs of the additional expenditures that we're going to propose tonight. In the administration line, the $29,000 for wages, that covers the additional payments as talked about in the general fund. The sludge treatment, that was the emergency repair that we talked about, that we reported out to you earlier this year, where they were emptying out, and I'm going to blow the technical terms, I'm sure, but emptying out the sludge from the sludge pits, essentially, basins. Emptying out the digesters, and really discovered some need to do some pretty significant repairs in there. So this appropriates funds to pay for those. Meter operations and maintenance is just simply a payroll item, and that's it for the water and sewer fund. Page 5, almost there, 6 pages total. Cemetery operating fund. Again, here's a fund where there's some additional revenue, a transfer in from the perpetual care fund to fund a capital purchase, and then some line items. Wanted to note there was a contribution made to the cemetery from a private party to do some beautification in a city publicly owned portion of the new block 14, which is on the southeast end of the cemetery, and that's a block that's just opening, and it looks really nice. So that was privately funded, and so we're just simply budgeting for the revenues for that, and then the expenses down in the operating supplies section. The salaries and the equipment rental here are to just simply cover the classification again of DPW hours spent in the cemetery on those operations. And capital outlay is to fund 50% of the cost of a new blower that was recommended by the cemetery board. Last page first in the brownfield, just a little bit of a tweak. That first line where it says revenue shouldn't be 465, it should say 60, but the line item in detail itself, taxes, is just about $5,000 more than had been originally projected. And those are just pass-through taxes that get reimbursed to developers of those projects. And then lastly, back to the Trailhead where we said we'd talk about it a little bit more. This is the last item in the budget amendment. So the state of Michigan grant, that stays the same at $265,000. Contributions from private sources, we had originally put all of what we had projected as the remaining funds in there. As it flows through, that's going to be about $71,000, and that should match the chart that was in the earlier presentation. And then we are just simply proposing to split the remaining, and again, in the communication, I believe the number was 218. I rounded that to 220 for this budget amendment. And we propose to split that between a partial use of the ARPA dollars that we've received and funds from the general fund itself. So our total ARPA funds, just to remind you, will be just under $1.1 million, and we've received half of those, with the other half to come this fall. And then budgeting, again, for construction in the trailhead at the actual anticipated cost. And again, this is, to be clear, this is for the option one, the base bid, or this is for the base bid plus 15% contingency. This does not include any other costs. I think that was as fast as I could do it, unfortunately.
That's a lot. Well done.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution amending General Appropriations Act for fiscal year 2022 as so well presented.
Support.
Councilmember King,
Yes.
Shippers.
Yes.
Alabas.
Yes.
Ingalls.
Yes.
Mayor Folkman.
Yes, motion carries. Okay, we'll go ahead and open the floor for our second public comment.
Trail Boatery, do I got to do it again? Do I have to write my address again?
You don't have to write it again.
Oh, so in furtherance, in 2009, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office discovered 11,341 untested sexual assault kits, some of them dating back 30 years. In 2013, Michigan legislators appropriated $4 million in new funding to test those backlogged kits. In 2014, Michigan legislators appropriated an additional $3 million in funding for prosecutions linked to newly tested backlog kits. An additional 555 sexual assault kits were discovered by out-of-state laboratory workers when inspecting the original backlog, which were collected in 2010 and 2011, but were not sent until 2015. In 2015, the Manhattan DA's office and the U.S. DOJ Bureau of Justice Assistance awarded the Flint Police Department a total near $1.3 million to test kits, investigate and prosecute cases, and re-engage survivors. That same year, the Michigan State Police received over $3 million from both the Manhattan DA's office and the BJA. The Wayne County Prosecuting Attorney's Office received almost $2 million from the BJA to investigate and prosecute cases and re-engage survivors. In 2016, another $2 million. In 2017, another $1.5 million. And another 1,177 sexual assault kits were reported by Michigan State Police. In 2018, another $2.1 million. In 2019, another $1.7 million. In 2020, Wayne County got another $1 million. As of June 2021, 12 years later, Detroit has ended its known backlog and tested all 11,341 kits, resulting in 2,616 DNA matches, the identification of 830 serial sexual offenders, and 224 convictions. DNA from kits tested has been linked to crimes committed in 40 states and Washington, D.C. This is roughly $20 million over 12 years to do the job that they were supposed to do initially.
I had no idea how much my hand relied on the other hand for support. Caitlin Berard, 10816 Lockwood Drive, and representative of the Cadillac Area Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to say thank you tonight for the three specific projects, the 514 Wright Street, the Cadillac Industrial Fund project, the Trailhead construction, as well as the Brownfield plan for the 101 Harris. These investments and approvals will make immediate differences as the need has been shown in our recent feasibility studies within our community. And this continued longevity of resident engagement of investment only increases the future taxable revenue for our city and continues for appropriate projects and for the livability of our communities moving forward. So thank you for your support on those projects tonight.
Thank you.
I'll gladly take a second bite at the apple. So again, Paul Griffith from Friends of the White Pine Trail. Thank you for the action you took this evening. In the next couple of weeks, if you remember, both Cadillac and the City of Big Rapids made application to be designated as Pure Michigan Trail Towns, and we will learn the results of that in a couple of weeks when the governor has her tourism conference in Traverse City. If that does happen, Reed City and Big Rapids will have 3. I'm sure Cedar Springs and Rockford won't want to be outdone by their friends up north. And so our plan is to have all 5 of those cities to become Pure Michigan Trail towns, in addition to for the trail itself to become a Pure Michigan Trail. And thank you again. I've actually, when I rode up here the first time with the group, I bike every Monday and Thursday when it's good weather. On the trail, and we go to 14 different sections of trail all over, well, within an hour around here. And I remember coming up here the first time and going, where's the, where do I go from here? Where does it end? Okay, and so when that trail gets all paved, it's going to be significantly more busy. I don't know if you're aware that the White Pine Trail is already one of the top 100 rails to trails in the country, as determined by the National Rail to Trail Conservancy. So this isn't us doing it, kind of thing. And so, again, thank you for your efforts. I know it goes back a ways to 2018 when you got your first for the trust fund grant. And hopefully a year from now we'll see a significant improvement at the end with the addition of this new trailhead. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else, we'll close public comment. And tonight we need to talk about a tabled item.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. The City Council held a public hearing with regard to an ordinance that amends Section 40-25 of our City Code regarding exhibition driving. Exhibition driving, just very quickly, is with regard to rapid acceleration, squealing, peeling, or burning of tires, the swaying of a motor vehicle from side to side, or commonly referred to as fishtailing, unnecessary and excessive changing of lanes, and racing or running of an engine of a motor vehicle at such speed or revolutions per minute to cause excessive or unusual noise in excess of the limitations under MCL 257.707 subsection C. The City Council at your last meeting determined to table the item, looking for some clarification as to whether or not the points assessed by our ordinance could notice it as a 0-point ordinance, and we did move forward and put that in this current draft today. I will say that our prosecutor, who ultimately will get these things, Mr. Corey Wiggins, is here in the gallery this evening. But the recommendation this evening would be to consider the approval of the ordinance as drafted.
As I said at our last meeting, I think it's a good step. If it's a 0-point ticket, it gives public safety a great tool that doesn't punish people inordinately, and therefore I would go ahead and make a motion to approve the resolution to adopt ordinance to amend section 40-25 of the city code regarding exhibition driving as presented.
Support.
Councilmember Shippers,
Yes.
Ellenboss,
Yes.
Ingalls,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Mayor Folkins.
Yes, motion carries.
Thank you for that clarification and everybody who got that, and appreciate that.
Definitely. Okay, that takes us to the good of the order. If anyone has anything this evening.
I would like to say that over the past 2 weeks now, I've received several letters from residents and businesses asking us to reconsider approving routes of snowmobiles into town. And I think Mr. Pesha has forwarded the initial package of letters in. We're up to either 22 or 25 of businesses and residents. My understanding from Mr. Towers, who spoke earlier, is there's going to be more coming in. So my thought is to hopefully have it on the agenda for us to discuss again next meeting, as I think it's an issue that's important for business and the city.
I have a question in regards to that. I think it's a good idea to bring it back. Oops.
I don't know how I did that.
I think it's definitely a good idea to bring it back. I guess I would like to ask the question about holding the public meeting or a public hearing so that folks have an opportunity to present in person and have conversation. I think whether it's by phone or whether it's by letter or whether it's here in the gallery, I think that the more people that we can hear from, then we'll know that we're making the best decision for the community.
And I think that's a great idea, Mayor. The 3 of the calls today, which our managers are aware of, were people that were originally against it, and now that they've seen it and understand it. And I've said to everybody, when we get it back on, come in and talk about it.
Good.
I think that's a great way to have people participate on it.
Yeah. just to interject, not saying anything good, bad, or otherwise, other than saying I'm happy to put it on your next agenda, and we can structure it on your agenda where it is treated like a public hearing. We can call it a public hearing. We can provide, the sort of rules of decorum as you do for any public hearing. You can open it up. Staff can provide, the quick rundown. You can open it up for the public to provide feedback, take it back for discussion. And just like with any of your public hearing items, there's no pressure for you to make determinations until you're ready to. So.
Okay, fair enough.
Great idea.
I did notice that each of those letters is the same text.
Stormwater.
So I'm thinking it would be like sort of like a petition signed by 25 people. Similar, because they're all identical letters. But that doesn't mean that they don't all feel the same way. It's just, but I agree, we can talk about this.
I can tell you, I think that Mr. Towers presented the letters to people who wanted to give support. And as a lot of times people say, give me something so I can express my support. So I think you could call all those residents and they.
Oh, I'm sure they feel that way. That's what I said, but it's interesting.
Okay, there is one other thing that I want to bring up this evening. For the past several years, we do Marcus's evaluation at the same time every year. And for the last several years, there has been discussion about, gosh, I'd like to see a different tool that has more metrics or, more meat or whatever that is. We haven't had the chance to have that work session. And so what I would like to ask of the council is that I would like to, we're at a point this year, we can't change the tool without Marcus's approval of the tool. So what I would like to propose is that we use the same tool again this year, but before we get to that point, I would like to schedule a work session which would include Mike Homier, correct? Mike Homier, and then Marcus would have to, approve of the tool. But what I would ask is that, rather than myself going out and looking for something, last year T.I. and I got a whole bunch of different examples, but I would ask all of you to also take the time to go out and find that tool that you're talking about, so that then we can talk about it and we can come up with something that makes sense, that legal will approve of and Marcus will agree to, and then we'll be by that. How does that sound?
Well, I think a work session's great. I think
Okay.
that's where you start with anything.
Yep. So Marcus, if we can get a work session on.
All you guys? Yeah.
Yep. Just as soon as possible, that would be great. Okay. Thank you.
I have one thing.
Why not?
Why not? I have one thing for the good of the order. This Saturday, Go for Wood Concerts is going to have its first benefit in 3 years. Our last benefit that we had was scheduled for the weekend that everything shut down. And so for 3 years, we have not had Gopherwood has not had any revenues coming in. We have had some programs through the pandemic. We paid artists to do live streams, things like that. So we are ready at long last to have another benefit concert and silent auction this Saturday at 7 p.m. at the third floor of the Elks. And
Yeah, who's playing?
oh, a lot of people are playing.
Okay.
Adam Joint is playing. A local group called Late March is playing. Mary Sue Wilkinson, who is a old country singer. Frank Youngman. Zach Bunce is going to be playing. My husband and I are going to be playing. Brian Roman, an Irish and old-time fiddler, will be playing. And Heather Kingham, who leads TC Sings, will be there to lead the finale where we can all sing a song together for the first time in a very long time. So if you're available Saturday night, consider coming for some great local music, and many local craftspeople and artists have donated things for the silent auction. Plus there are some fun activity packages and things like that as well. So hope to see you Saturday night.
7 p.m.
7 p.m. Elks.
until bedtime, 10 o'clock. One quick, when are we going to start on my new parking lot down there, our new trailhead? Is there any date, Connie, for?
We'll have to award the contract.
Okay.
Now that we can, and then as soon as I know when the materials will arrive.
This fall? Should be completed by fall, perhaps?
Depends on materials.
There you go. All right.
We have a big shortage right now, so it just depends.
All right, thank you. Very good.
You guys good? Okay. We'll go ahead and adjourn then, thanks.
Let's go.
Thank you,
What are you doing
everybody.
here?
And I will.
You got nothing going on?